So Einstein dies and he finds himself in heaven, and he really likes the violin even though he's not good at it. But even so, he still continues to try it because he's sure that one day he's going to become really good at it. But when he starts playing, all the angels come and rush to him. Don't do that. God won't like it. He's a saxophonist. But Einstein doesn't really take their words to heart. He starts playing anyways because he's sure that one day God might come to be very fond of it. And sure enough, from high above, God appears and he's infuriated. But he doesn't show it because he's God. He takes away Einstein's violin and he smashes it and is like, here, why don't you try playing the saxophone instead? All the angels cheer. Oh my God, wow, God is so nice. Now you can play the saxophone with God. Netflix's 3-body problem. I didn't go into watching this show comparing it with the books because I know a lot of people out there who are passionate fans of the book. They'll have completely different opinions compared to someone who never heard about the story, just watched the show for the first time. I'm kind of like in between. I read the first book in Chinese like a decade ago. I don't remember very much of it. Besides the whole premise and like the overall story, I don't remember any of the details. I have not seen the Chinese Tencent version of it either, so I'm not going to be comparing it with that show. This show is kind of the only thing I'm focusing on. I'm not comparing it to very much else. I know I already kind of know the story, so that's kind of hard to erase, but overall, when I went into this show, I did try to not think about anything. I'm just going to watch it like some show that I'm enjoying. And this is my honest opinion of the show. The first half, the first 4 episodes, maybe up until episode 5 even, I wasn't feeling the show. But I continued to watch because it was still okay. It got better later on, and then to the point where I'm like, now that the end got me really excited for season 2. I just want to see what happens. This show, it starts off showing the Cultural Revolution in China. For some reason, I found myself feeling slightly uncomfortable while watching all of the scenes that happened in the 1960s China. It almost felt a little bit out of place. I think that is the best way to describe it. I know this is adapted from a Chinese work. This exact scene happens pretty much in the book. We're keeping some of the Chinese cultural elements in this show, even though it's quite obvious from the trailer, from everything, that they were going to internationalize this show. They were going to make it more of a global story than just primarily set in China, because in the present day, 90% of the time we're in the UK. When I watched all of like the present day, modern day scenes, it was reminiscent of Doctor Who plus Black Mirror. And I was a big Doctor Who fan back in college. All of the westernized parts of this show had all of the elements that I love to see in shows. But the Chinese parts felt out of place. It was strangely out of place. I kept trying to think about it, and I was just thinking, am I just being biased, or am I just not used to seeing my own culture? My own culture. I grew up in the US, so I'm not really Chinese. I'm very whitewashed inside. I am a banana. I go to China. Everybody calls me a banana, which means you're just yellow on the outside, but you're white on the inside. So I'm like, yeah, I can relate to this show. I am probably the audience Netflix is targeting. I was a fan of Game of Thrones, but as I'm watching this, I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. And it's not just because the Cultural Revolution was this horrible time. It's just there to represent negative things, because it had a very negative impact on the main character, and it pushed her to do something that literally sets this whole story into motion. And so as I'm watching this, I'm trying to actually really think about this part, probably more than I should, but I did, because they showed quite a bit of it. They showed a lot of the flashbacks of the character Ye Wenjie, her past, her experience during the Cultural Revolution, seeing her father get beaten to death during a struggle session, being betrayed multiple times in her life later on, and being jailed, being wronged so many times that she gives up on humanity as a whole. I already knew this, because this is like the whole premise of the first book. Like, it didn't come as a surprise to me, but the moment I saw it on screen, it made me think about it in a different way. The reason that I started to think about it in a different way was because Netflix internationalized this show. Let us all remember, it's supposed to be this global show. So I'm like, okay, so now we're not just in China, but in this particular part of the story, we're still focused on China so much. All of the negative things that happened in Ye Wenjie's life, it happened in China. And she just decides that just because China was horrible to her, she decides to throw the rest of humanity under the bus. to me, that just doesn't seem like a convincing argument. I know she was probably vengeful. She wanted to get back at all the people that wronged her. I mean, I give props to her for not jumping that girl that beat her father to death, because later on she meets her again and she keeps her composure. And I'm like, damn, okay. That takes a lot of self-restraint. But her decision to answer the Santi, which is the aliens in the show, when she sends the message and they receive it, they respond. There's a pacifist that literally tells her, don't respond. It's not going to end well for you guys. And she does it anyways, and she doesn't even really hesitate all that much. To me, it just seemed like she made a very emotionally impulsive decision for the rest of humanity. It was very selfish of her. She probably wasn't of sound mind. But then I think about it and I'm like, it's kind of contradicting because, first of all, she's supposedly really intelligent. She's an astrophysicist. I just wasn't convinced that whatever happened to her in her life was enough to push her to this point. And I don't know if them showing more of the Cultural Revolution stuff in the show would have made it more convincing, because the reason I don't think it's convincing is because I don't understand why, because she thought her own country was bad, like unsavable, the rest of humanity. All of the other countries in the world were also in the same boat. Doesn't that sound a little bit extreme? It's like I'm looking for this item to purchase and I go to my local store near my house and it's sold out. So then I decide to take a rocket ship and go to Mars to find it. Wouldn't you first exhaust all of your nearer options before you decide to go further? Like, I would check different stores, right? So I'm just like, I don't know why her solution to saving humanity, or like whatever her goal was, I don't know why she couldn't just have been like, why don't I just move out of China? Why don't I just find a way to get out of here? There's so many other places on Earth that might be better. And then I thought about it and I was like, okay, so if they really wanted to get rid of this, they could have taken the opportunity to actually make this internationalized and show that the rest of the world was also struggling, and to show that every single country in the history of humanity has gone through dark phases, has gone through up and downs. I don't think there's a single country that has ever existed that just from start to finish just drove on Rainbow Road. If you're deciding to internationalize it, I feel like it would have been something good to include. And it could have justified her actions a bit more. It could have gone like either Cultural Revolution was bad, but let's also explain why that happened. Why did China go through the Cultural Revolution? What pushed them toward that point? And then if she had also, thought about that, it would make more sense for her to be like, oh, yeah, humans push other humans to these points, and it has nothing to do with a single country or a single culture. And then you could also say that maybe she just grew up in her own Chinese bubble. I think that would have been more justifiable if the whole story stayed in China, because in the show, it's pretty obvious that she knows about the rest of the world. She's literally fluent in English, and she has published a paper fully in English, which presumably went through peer review. And she knows about California. She literally tells one of the guys to contact a professor or someone in California. So I'm like, she knows about the outside world. Did you think that everyone in the world was just not savable? I was like, this is kind of strange. And I didn't really like her. Maybe that was the point. Maybe you're not supposed to like Ye Wenjie, because later on in the future, I dislike her even more when she starts that freaking cult. I don't know. She was traumatized, not of sound mind, but she seemed to have lived a pretty full life. She's head of this cult. And then when she's being interrogated, she acts like, I know stuff you don't know and I'm not going to tell you. So I'm just like, oh my God, I found her pretty dislikable. I don't know if she ever regretted her decision. I feel like she never did, even though her life wasn't all that bad. After she left China and moved to the UK, I just feel like her life sounded pretty good. We don't get to see what happens, but we do see her falling in love with Mike Evans, who ends up being Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood on a boat. I didn't particularly like his character either. He wasn't shown very much. I don't know exactly what he kind of believed in. He was just shown to be kind of a tree hugger, but he inherited a lot of money. And I don't know what his goal was, to be honest. It was probably such a small portion of the show that I just missed it. But yeah, I will say that the beginning first few episodes felt a little bit rushed. It felt like they were doing the world building, but they were trying to do it as fast as possible, but also in a cool way. But at the same time, when it's cool and you don't really explain it or elaborate or use any of the cool stuff, it feels kind of like you're just throwing things in for the spectacle of it. It doesn't actually do too much other than make things feel a little bit disconnected. That also brings me to the VR video game that's supposed to teach humanity or the chosen people about the aliens. And so this VR game, it looks cool. It's pretty mysterious in the beginning because you're like, oh my God, what is this? It's kind of weird. The headsets look really cool. And then the tech is really advanced technology that we don't have on Earth. This is what Mark Zuckerberg wishes Metaverse was. As a viewer, I felt very intrigued. I feel like they underutilized the game. It was one of the things that felt like it was there for the spectacle. Each level, you're supposed to kind of learn something about it. There was no build up. It was just like a lot of cool effects, but just for the purpose of showing a simple concept. In the third level, they have this like awesome human computer made up of 30 million soldiers, and they're all holding these like flags that flip back and forth, and it's like black and white, and it's supposed to be like binary. That looked really cool, and I was waiting for them to sort of at least explain on a basic level how it works. How are you predicting stable eras with this? They don't even really explain it. They kind of just show all the things flipping around, and then the result is put forth. Is this like general knowledge that the general audience is supposed to know, and I just don't know how this human computer works? Like, I felt kind of like, am I just asking a stupid question that I'm wondering how it works and they're not explaining it? That was kind of frustrating for me because I'm like, you can't just show me a cool thing and then not explain how it actually works. At the end of the game, all they really learn is that this planet that they've been playing this game on is actually a real planet that is part of a 3-body system. These people on the planet are actually real aliens that are coming to Earth, and that this game was basically like a job interview. We want the smart humans that actually care about us. It almost felt a little bit anticlimactic because I'm just like, so the whole point was for us to learn that as a species, if you can't survive on your planet anymore, you have to find somewhere else to live. And then the whole concept of if one of us survives, we all survive. Isn't that just basic evolutionary biology? I was also taught in evolutionary biology that if you do not reproduce, it is as if you've never lived. That seems like a pretty simple concept to use such a high-tech video game to really convey. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so maybe the Santi, their technology is like so advanced that this is like child's play to them. And then the characters. So the main characters of present day are the Oxford Five, and they're just like 5 diverse students studying at Oxford University. They're all like geniuses. I don't know. I guess you can say they're diverse on the outside, but I do feel like internally, they do not seem like international students that just went to Oxford to study. They actually sound like they're second generation immigrants that grew up in the UK. So I'm like, I don't know how diverse that is, but I'm just gonna let it go. It doesn't even matter at this point. This is classic Doctor Who, where it's like, why are the aliens always in London? What I am bothered by a little bit is some of the characters. I didn't really like Auggie. She's supposedly a smart nanotech engineer that has invented like this nanofiber material that's like super cool, but I don't think they emphasize her intelligence in this show. I just feel like they made her a little bit emotionally annoying. I guess she went through a lot throughout this show. She didn't really serve much of a purpose, and she wasn't exactly the most likable or helpful character. I guess she was supposed to be a moral compass. I don't know, because in that scene where they use her tech to sort of slice up Mike Evans's Mr. Rogers' neighborhood on a boat, it was a pretty cool scene. I just want to say it felt pretty thrilling to see it happen, because I'm like, oh my God, nanofiber. Geez, that is scary, because it honestly just looks like you can't see it. It's too small, but it just cuts you up. Ooh, that looks really cool. But also, I guess I'm supposed to feel bad for the kids. Why did Mike Evans have a cruise boat full of kids? I mean, I guess they're supposed to be the children of the members of the cult. Dang, they have a lot of kids. But I didn't feel bad for Mike Evans. I'm sorry. I didn't feel bad when he was kind of, and him just reading stories to the Santi person or whoever that he was communicating with. He called the person my lord. I don't even know why we don't know much about Mike Evans. I don't know why he's so comfortable just giving away his autonomy to something he doesn't even know about. And then he also screwed us all over because he revealed that humans can lie. So I'm like, well, you messed up there. Maybe I'm being too harsh on Mike Evans. Mr. Evans. Mr. Roger. But I guess it was a good way to find out for us as the audience to find out that the Santi cannot lie. I find it to be a pretty interesting concept to not be able to lie. It's kind of weird to me that such a high level intelligent species did not evolve the ability to lie. I kind of wish they explored that more, but there was no time for that. We have to move on. We have to get rid of Judgment Day. We have to break down Auggie emotionally, and then we have to move on. After that, it got better. I will say I started enjoying it more after the disconnected first half that I was just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this. In the later episodes, I'm like, oh, I kind of like this person. Oh, I like what's going on. Other characters that I kind of at first didn't like, I realized later on he actually became one of the characters that I really liked. He harbored this secret crush on Jin for so long. He does some pretty romantic stuff, buying Jin a star, and then he gets his brain dug out and then shot into space. He was part of the pivotal staircase project, and I'm just like, the staircase project was really cool. They linked him to her, Jin, because she's actually the one doing all the calculations and like working on this project, and then she also has this connection with the thing that she's working on. They only have one chance to get this right. So that really helped build the tension in that scene when they finally did shoot his brain up into the staircase. The staircase that's just like these nuclear explosions spaced out so that they can shoot this probe that has his brain to space at 1% the speed of light. And that was pretty cool. That looked pretty cool, and it was a lot of tension. And even though it was a failure, I mean, I expected it to be a failure. I'm like, in engineering, when does one expect that you're going to get it right the first try? That never happens. The whole cryogenics, that I'm just like, oh, are we really that developed? I would have liked to learn more about that tech, but that was not something the show was about to waste precious screen time showing. So I'm like, okay. They did show a scene of a monkey coming out of hibernation, so I guess that was cool, but it didn't really explain the tech. And it also didn't really explain too much of the side effects. I'm like, aren't we worried about like possible damage to ourselves or anything? It's a risky thing, but they're just going to kind of assume that we've got that tech down and we're going to do it because the Santi aren't going to arrive for 400 years and some of the important characters we still need later on. And I'm like, yes, because I really liked Wade. He's probably like my favorite character in this. I'm like Davos from Game of Thrones. I didn't expect to like him that much. He was kind of there in the beginning already. Him and Clarence were kind of like this detective duo team. Clarence was good. Benedict Wong. I'm like, Wong. Wade was like the character I didn't expect to like because he was just kind of there. Felt like we didn't get to see much of him in the beginning. He just seemed like he kind of was in charge of something, but what? I don't know. And then later on, he becomes like this really strong leader that's confident, charismatic. He was also comedic at times. And I'm just like, wow, he nailed everything. Everything was great. It feels like he also came up with the wall facer project. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is getting exciting. This is where everyone's like, this is going to get exciting. I'm like, yes, this is why they rushed through the world building in the beginning just to get us to this point. The character Saul Durand. I know he's supposed to be Luoji because I know the premise, not the premise. I know the whole story. I don't know the details. And it's so funny when he's like now a wall facer. I actually liked him too. He also felt like one of those characters that I'm like, why is he here? Like, he's not doing anything. And he has this like on and off relationship with Auggie that's really weird too, because he seems like a playboy. And then he gets chosen to be this wall facer. He also has the last conversation, his last conversation. It's not even her last conversation. He has this secretive conversation at a graveyard with Ye Wenjie. He's chosen to be a wall facer. Even though he's like, what the heck? Why am I chosen? He's kind of relatable in that sense. It's just like, what the heck? Why am I chosen? I can't do this. I want to get out of this. He's like desperately trying to get out of this, but then everyone's just like, there's no way you're getting out of this because every time you say you want to get out of it, we don't know if that's just part of your plan. So yeah, the Wall Facer project is very cool. I'm excited to see more of that. The show had a lot of high-tech stuff that was there for just spectacle. They did try to explain it a bit, like the Sofon. The Sofon was really cool. The way it looked visually was amazing. It was incredible. I was like, oh, wow. But I'm kind of confused about its limitations. How powerful is it? What exactly can it do? It seems like sometimes it can do a lot and other times it's like limited. I'm kind of conflicted because it seems like they're so powerful that they can just really get rid of any human. Like, I know they cannot kill people directly, but like all of these indirect interferences should be easy enough for you to wipe out like at least Saul. So many moments in this show where I'm like, these people are like intelligent scientists, but they act like they're not intelligent scientists. So people who get this VR headset, it just randomly shows up in your house, okay? Like the cult, they somehow get it into your house. You can't even catch them on CCTV. There's no trace of anyone ever coming in. Jake, Jack. He gets one of these and he decides to put it on his head. I guess he was already kind of exposed to the headset because Jin already got one. But still, would you just randomly put a headset that you don't know where it came from? You don't know what it's gonna do to you? Would you just like put that on your head? As was the decision Ye Wen-ji made when she decided to answer the alien message. I would have seen that message and I would have been like, is this even real? Is this some joke? And also the fact that nothing ever connects back to her past. They never show modern China in this show. Like, she does go back to the Red Coast base, but they don't show what happened to the society post-cultural revolution. So I'm just like, how come we don't get to see that? It's almost as if somewhere in China at this Red Coast base, a decision to end humanity was made. Now we have this big problem. And then now the whole country is out of the picture. I'm like, would the rest of the world, first of all, I don't know if the rest of the world know what started this, because now it is revealed that the Santi are coming. Is no one questioning how they found us? Maybe they just assume that they found us because they're high tech. If they knew that this happened at the Red Coast base, why wouldn't the rest of the world like expect China to take some responsibility for it? Like, it almost seems like they're not even here. You're not going to help us fight the aliens when you started all of this. That's the part where I'm like, it's a little bit disconnected. It just seemed like China felt out of place. This whole story is like an original Chinese work, but at the end of the day, I watched this show and I'm like, China feels out of place and forced. It's like I'm watching two different shows. That's what I felt like. It just seemed a little bit illogical for something so scientific. We didn't get to see much of other parts of the world. We were at the UN building at one time, and I'm like, I've been to the UN building. It's kind of cool. I'm surprised that the US is not involved in this story that much, because I'm like, if there was an extraterrestrial threat to the planet, I'm pretty sure the US would have stuck their business everywhere. It's very strange to not have an American presence, or really a presence of any other country besides the UK. But it's fine. The beauty of science fiction to me has always been, it's science enough that whatever they're showing, even though it seems to be out of this world, like literally out of this world, it seems plausible. For me, that's like really good science fiction. When the science is so good, it teeters between fiction and real. And when I used to write science fiction, because I used to write fan fiction, but they were like science fiction fan fiction, that was like my most favorite thing to explore. And I was obsessed with the concept of time and consciousness. Please also share your opinion on the show if you've seen this show, because this show is kind of divisive, surprisingly more divisive than I thought. For the people who are always encouraging and commenting in my videos, I really want to say that I appreciate you guys being here, spending time with me, listening to me rant about my subjective opinions. Thank you for watching this video. See you in the next video.